Welcome to our Daisy Jones and the Six with your favorite 3 of 4 co-hosts of Will Throw the After Party. To be like that intro. Sly's not with us this week, and we miss them very much, but they are slaying at a wedding. So, love that for them. And love this episode for us because, oh my God, we're talking about one of the biggest shows of the year, Daisy Jones and the Six, which we have pages upon pages of notes about everything from the wigs and outfits to the music to the style of the show to the book adaptation. We're kind of talking about all of it this evening. And I know I personally am here with Sam Claflin worms for brains, as Marissa would call it. So I'm ready to be so obnoxious about a man that deserves so much better from the way fans treat him and talk about him. That's where I'm kind of coming into tonight's show from. Marissa and Alexis, welcome. Alexis has the gorgeous kind of Daisy Jones theming bandana going on, which I'm obsessed with. Marissa also went for a flower top this evening. I was like, I have to wear some daisies for Daisy Jones. So I love. Marissa, how was your week? What's going on in your world?
My week was pretty good. Not much going on in my world. Pretty slow around here. I am a little frazzled right now because I spent way too long blowing out my hair before this. And I showed up a little late and unprepared. So we're going in with chaos today.
Chaos mode is on. I also am in chaos mode. I accidentally slept until 6:30 p.m. Woke up, did a few things, thought I was laying down for 5 minutes, then re-listened to Aurora to wake myself up. So I'm ready to talk Daisy Jones. We have pure chaos over here. I did remember to put my lipstick on while the intro was running. So that's the level that we're on this evening. Alexis, how are you? Where are you checking in this evening?
I'm good. I'm not going to say much about my week because that's going to fall into my rant for this evening, but I'm good. I was in a windstorm today, so I spent no time on my hair and thus also showed up a little frazzled. So opposite of Marissa vibes. But
you had like Mother Nature's blowout. Like you had for free. I love that for you. Obsessed. It is the second weekend of the Eras tour. That's probably why I slept for as long as I did today. Because last weekend I was up all night, every night, watching the live streams of the shows from Arizona, as Taylor would say. And last night it started at midnight for me, so I forced myself to go to bed. But hello to everyone watching. I know we have some folks that are joining us from the cast live that just happened on Prime Video. So if you're new around here, welcome to Will Throw the After Party. It's great to have all the Daisy Jones fans with us tonight. And hello to Hannah, who was also in the live with me, and Sylvan. Great to have you guys back. And hello to all the replayers that are going to watch us back later. Great to have you back with us. So before we jump all the way into Daisy Jones and the Six, let's talk about what we've been enjoying this week. I know, Marissa, you've been watching everything. Marissa's been in her binge watch era this week. So why don't you talk us through some of what you've been watching and maybe give us like some out of 10 where things have been ranking for you? Because I feel like every day Marissa's like, okay, I've watched 10 episodes of this. I've read every single piece of commentary on that. I now know every fact about this. And it's like, wow, Marissa really, really took it all in this week.
Yeah. I've been inspired by you a little bit, Liz, and your 45 tabs open of any article you ever want to read. I'm in an articles era. I've anything that I'm like, oh, I wonder if someone's written about that. I'm like, Google, and I find it, and then I never read it. So I have a lot of tabs open right now about all of the things that I am watching, and maybe we'll get to some of it later. But mostly what I've been watching this week, other than Daisy Jones and the Six, which I plowed through, is The Mandalorian. I finally started watching The Mandalorian. I am notoriously behind on all Star Wars content. So I just made it through the end of season 2 yesterday, and I started the book of Boba Fett, and it was really like it was a hill. I started real low on Mandalorian season 1, was not really a fan. Season 2, peak. Book of Boba Fett fell right back down. So I like to say I'm sitting on the couch and it is playing, but I'm not really watching it. So it's just sort of like on, so I can say that I made it through, so I can get to Mandalorian season 3. But that's been most of my week. I also, with the release of those new Taylor's Version songs and the start of the Eras tour, I'm like right back in my Taylor Swift listening. And so I've been returning to a lot of Liz's MCU Taylor playlists. Big fan of Bucky Barnes, obviously, the Wanda, the Yelena. The Spider-Mans don't get as much play for me, but they're just unbearably sad. There's both a Peter Parker MCU and an Andrew Garfield, and they're so sad that I need a little bit more variety. So
I'll take that feedback. Listen, let's get a Happy Spider-Man themed Taylor Swift playlist going. I have been thinking it's time for the spring iteration of playlists to emerge. I'm like feeling it bubble up in my soul. So I think that maybe some new mixes might be on the way. But the moment has to strike for it to work.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think Yelena has been getting the most play, but also it's like 5 hours long. So
yeah, it's true. It's a big playlist. I'm very into the can last you all day without having to think about it style of playlist building. Sylvan's also been on the Taylor train. I too have been deep in the Eras tour set list. Like Sly made a version. There's been a lot of different versions of the set list going around, some with the song she's been singing, some without. And I've just been straight in that like end of the show, Midnight Rain, Bejeweled, Karma, and then back up to the top with Miss Americana, Cruel Summer, like just bop, 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 bop every day. So yeah, I'm with all of you, Producer Liz on Spotify. Enjoy if you want pure Taylor Swift vibes and very, very sad playlist. I've got you covered. A request for a Leslie Note playlist.
Oh, we haven't branched out. Wow.
Listen, consider it noted. Alexis, what have you been enjoying this week? What's been happening in your world? I'm really excited to hear the second point that you wrote down because I have no idea what you're referring to.
Okay, so, well, I will start with the first point. So I watched 911. I think most people that watch our show know that I'm a pretty big fan of 911. But it has not always made what I've been enjoying this term. And this was an episode that I really enjoyed. I thought it was a really good episode. And one of the things that I liked about it, season 6 has gotten a lot of criticism for not being consistent with its character growth, right? And kind of setting some of these characters ahead of where they were in the story and of setting some characters behind of where they had been in the story. And I thought this episode played with growth in a really interesting way, right? So I've notoriously had issues with the Buck gets his leg crushed and all of his friends are assholes plot line from like season 2 or 3. And what I thought was interesting in this episode was that he's recovering from injury and all of his friends show up, but they're still not really listening to what he needs or wants, which was this interesting kind of growth, no growth scenario, which kind of checked it off at the top of my list. The second point was that I watched The Rookie. And I would just like to say again, I am not recommending anyone else watch The Rookie. I want to be clear here. I am watching The Rookie because my mother got obsessed with The Rookie, and there were like 2 characters that kind of fit what I look for in like a romantic ship. So I was like, down with the ship, here we go. But The Rookie has done a series of true crime mockumentary style episodes. There are 3 of them, and hand to God, I think they are the best episodes that The Rookie does. They were really well done. And they're even, for me, some of the better kind of documentary style episodes I've seen on television. Like they don't interfere with the storytelling. They're really consistent, but they also play on all of those kind of like true crime tropes. So this week, for those of you who are intelligent and are not watching The Rookie, the plot of the mockumentary was that 2 of the cops have real life doppelgangers. This is supposed to be set in real life, real time Los Angeles. They have real life doppelgangers who are like drug dealers / hitman / low level criminals who have been parasite living off of rich people's houses. And one of them goes missing. So the documentary team comes in to film an episode about these cops who are in a relationship and their doppelgangers who are in a relationship. The mockumentary episode before this involved a man who took a diet pill with cough syrup and thus accidentally created a cult through fan fiction. So this one was not that far off from kind of the theme, but it was a very good episode. I immediately re-looped it. Like it was very funny. So
there's so much to unpack there. Oh my God. How long are these episodes? Are they an hour each?
Yeah, they're about an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think my main thing with The Rookie is that it does not know what it is as a show at all. It sometimes it is a very intelligent, like critical commentary on policing. And then like sometimes everybody has a doppelganger in the sheriff's department, like shares the front window of a bakery. And you're just like, the fuck is happening? Like sometimes Lance Bass is just in an episode as Lance Bass. And like Pete Davidson just like shows up on the side of the road. And you're like, the hell is Pete Davidson doing in this episode? So it's not a ride I suggest, but
I feel like the way that you talk about the show that takes itself seriously sounds like a satire version of what the show is. Do you know what I mean? So maybe you have convinced some of us to go tune in because now I need to see this for myself. I shall add it to my list for next week because I'm going to need something to fill the void of Shadow and Bone season 2 ending. The whole season's out. It's very rare that I enjoy a show so much that I actually try to stretch it out for myself. And Shadow and Bone season 1, I watched like almost all in one sitting and was like, I shouldn't have done that. Because I really enjoyed that. And now it is just over. So season 2, I was like, I'm going to take it slow. So I've been watching it over the course of 3 weeks and I'm finishing it tonight. And to me, that's like mass improvement. And I'm very, very stressed about finishing it because I love Ben Barnes. I'm in my Ben Barnes era and I'm not going to spoil it, but I know what happens to him at the end of the season, which is maybe why I've been stretching it out. And I've just been kind of filling the gap in my heart with like fan cams and like TikTok really doing the work around Ben Barnes. So, send love my way tonight in about a few hours. When I finish the show, I'm going to be deep in the rabbit hole of Taylor Swift edits to Ben Barnes characters, I think, to try and get myself back on track after what's going to be a hard finale. But I've been reading a lot about, I haven't read the books themselves, but Six of Crows is probably going to get a spinoff. And I'm big on the train for Six of Crows going all the way. I think that these characters are so well done and the ensemble loves each other. I have a TikTok coming about that. So yeah, I've been deep in Shadow and Bone land. And if you want to talk Shadow and Bone, I've been all over it on my Instagram stories. And I specifically put in the notes, send me your fan cams, please. I'm begging. I need them. I need all of them. So that's what I've been enjoying this week. Just like all the Shadow and Bone and then a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you'll hear about on Tuesday. And that's literally all I can say. So if you're not following me on all the platforms, Tuesday's a good day to start following me on all of the platforms. But
today is a good day to start following you on all the platforms.
Correct. That's very true. It's very true.
Tuesday is a good day to turn on notifications.
This is why Marissa runs our social, because Marissa knows how to properly plug these things. Absolutely. Okay, before we move on, I have to say, I'm a Ben Barnes Series Black fan cast truther and always will be. I'm right there with you. I've never read all of the Young Dudes all the way through, and yet I am deep on Sirius Black, TikTok, Andrew Garfield, Ben Barnes.
Yeah, it's Ben Barnes, Andrew Garfield,
Lewis Capaldi. Lewis Capaldi is Peter Pettigrew.
Poor Lewis Capaldi. Oh no.
Anyway, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole this evening, especially with that Sly. Sly has been begging me to read that fic with them for almost a year now, and I just keep putting it off because I don't have the emotional capacity. But let's talk about our rants of the week. This is our segment where we share some of what's been happening over the past week in under 2 minutes each. So let me share our timer. You can see all of our notes at the top because I shared the wrong tab, but that's fine. I'm going to be ranting about, hold on. Actually, I have to reshare or else you're going to see all my notes. 1 second. I'm going to be ranting about Sam Claflin because he deserves the world. And I don't think that society is giving him the respect that he deserves. So I'm going to give him his flowers live tonight on the show. Marissa, what are you ranting about this evening?
I'm going to be giving a follow-up to last week and delivering an apology.
Ooh, an apology episode. I love it. Okay, pop off.
I almost posted a Notes app apology, but I decided to wait and deliver it live.
Okay, well, we love a live apology. If anything, we prefer it, as we know from me having to do it almost every week. Alexis, what are you ranting about this evening?
Honestly, I couldn't come up with a rant that was going to fit this week, so I am just going to talk about my week. I'm just going to rant about things that happened this week.
I love it. I love it. You know what? Let's hear it. Get it all out of your system in 2 minutes. And we have our bonus Sly time since Sly is not here this evening. So if anybody needs extra time, we could keep going. We'll see how it goes. I've tried to time mine to exactly 2 minutes. So let's get this thing started, I guess. Oh, wait, before we start, let's do some like Diet Coke ASMR because y'all know I need it. And I just got Diet Coke all over my microphone. Oh no. So I hope that doesn't interrupt how I sound this episode, but that's fine. Let's just dig right in. Let's just go for it. Ready to rant, besties?
I guess.
All right, let's do it. We're never ready to rant, but we will anyway. Okay, Sam Claflin, aka this lovely man. The girlies love him. He has been slaying fandom for 2 decades now, if not a little bit longer, and yet he's not one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, and I think that's ridiculous. So let's talk about what this man has contributed to pop culture and what he should do next, because it's kind of his moment with Daisy Jones and the Six and the Hunger Games resurgence. I've seen his face literally everywhere, both his past work and current work, and he deserves the world.
So last week, I just gave an update on all of the pop culture news that had been announced since the Oscars, and it was an overwhelming list. And yet I egregiously left off one of my most anticipated projects of the near future, Schmigadoon Season 2. And I would like to just issue an apology to all those associated with Schmigadoon Season 2, all of those Schmigadoon viewers out there. And I'm now going to take this time to hold myself accountable and tell you about Schmigadoon Season 2.
All right, so we're just going to start on Monday. So on Monday, instead of working on my thesis, I decided to make a spreadsheet of all of the items that I keep, like the emergency items that I keep in each place. So like emergency items I keep in my office, emergency items I keep in my car. And you may be thinking, Alexis, do that many emergencies happen in your office? And so my list of common office emergencies include lint being on people's shirts, a button that popped off somebody's pants.
I feel like I can confirm Alexis has emergencies in her office regularly, so I'm really excited to hear the rest of that list. But to continue about Mr. Sam, let's talk about how his career started, because Finnick Odair popped onto the scene in 2013 and had us like in a chokehold through the Hunger Games trilogy at that point, because he wasn't in the first movie, but he was in second, third, and the final movie. Finnick Odair deserves so much more. He is still the fixation of the entire fandom. He made pop culture history, popped off with that one.
For those of you unfamiliar with Schmigadoon, it is a musical comedy satire parody type show. It's incredible. It's a gift to the world, to music, to comedy, to all of us. It's on Apple TV Plus. Anybody who watches Ted Lasso can watch Schmigadoon and should be watching Schmigadoon. It's only like 8 episodes, season 1, I think. It might be 10, but it's great. Season 1 is based on like Rodgers and Hammerstein classic age, like 50s songs. And then no one is interrupting me, so I will just keep going.
I was in your narrative. It was very interesting to me. Emergencies also include food poisoning, people passing out from low blood sugar, people, read not just me, people, and bursting into tears resulting in a mascara stained face that you have to take care of in the middle of the day. That happens fairly often. After that, I took a 3-hour stats test that everybody said.
This man decided that he was not only going to pull off the first most iconic death of the 2010s on screen, but the second with Me Before You. And if you weren't scarred by Finnick Odair, you are scarred by Me Before You. And if you went to the theater to see this movie, having not read the book, like me, on a nice Friday night with your friends and left in an absolute puddle, you are not alone. We have shared trauma over what this man has done to us. And I've been seeing Me Before You edits on my For You page, I think because of Daisy Jones and the Six bringing him back, and it's too much.
No. The cast of Schmigadoon includes Cecily Strong, Keegan-Michael Key, Alan Cumming, Kristen Chenoweth, Oscar winner Ariana DeBose, Dove Cameron, Anne Harada, Aaron Tveit. I'm forgetting people. But season 1, Schmigadoon, Brigadoon, Oklahoma carousel type vibes. Season 2, 60s, 70s, cabaret, Chicago, hair, Pippin, Godspell.
I took this 3-hour exam and everybody was like, it's not going to be as bad as the corrections exam. And spoiler alert, it was as bad as the corrections exam. I wrote on this damn stats exam for 3 hours. And I think I did okay on it. So like fingers crossed on that. I then watched 911 and I got to watch people on the internet lose their minds over the couch. And I laughed a lot because I know how a certain someone who is involved, maybe possibly in this show, feels about the couch situation.
I also had every couch tweet on my Twitter feed this week with no context. I just want to put that out there. Okay, so Sam has never won an award. He's been nominated for like MTV's and Teen Choice Awards. He was the Glamour Man of the Year in like 2014. But did you see the way he acted with his whole face in that finale and those eyes when he's leaving stage? Like, he deserves so much more. Let's cast him in bigger roles. I want to see him on the Emmy stage someday because he has the guts to get there.
Season 2 of Schmigadoon is called Schmicago. The concept of the show is that these two normal people go into the woods and they end up in this fantastical musical town called Schmigadoon. They try and re-enter this world in season 2, but they end up in Schmicago, which is darker, grittier, sexier. It's got Kristen Chenoweth basically playing Mrs. Lovett. Dove Cameron is essentially Sally Bowles. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Aaron Tveit has a fake afro at some point, a la hair. I
then got to see the photo edit of Buck and Eddie on the couch, which I am predicting will go canon on the Fox Spanish account, like the Fox Spain account, before like the end of the season. So we're waiting for that. Let's see what happened next. Oh, one of my professors went over all of the credentials that I have on my Vita and thus made me realize that I will get into the next step of my PhD program, which in my head, I wasn't going to get into.
So muted. The most muted you could ever be.
I was saying, Alexis, what a lovely note for us to end your week on. Like, we're ending on a high for you.
Well, except for the fact that, like, I'm now panicking.
Oh. Okay, so that's the end of I was like, wow, we got confirmation you're good for your PhD. That's great. But now it's just pure panic. That's good. I like that. Yeah.
Pure panic, yeah.
A little like brought back down to earth moment for Liz. No. It's pure panic now. I do want to make a rough transition here and just say
I have two more things to add.
Oh, okay, please. Here.
You didn't give me my extra time.
Let's do some bonus time, shall we? Shall we do some?
I don't need bonus time. It's okay.
You get it. No, you said it. We're gonna do the sly bonus time. Ready? Great. I want to say one more thing about Mr. Sam, which is that he is a part of this like crew of British people that took over pop culture. Like, you have Rob Patz, you have Sam, you have Ben Barnes, you have Andrew Garfield. Like, this is a class of men that are all kind of in that same age bracket that came into the scene at the same time and are all still fixtures in pop culture, having done iconic roles. And I think it's time for all of those men to just be the leads in every goddamn movie on the planet. And I respect Sam for coming to the plate now, and I want him to stick around.
Okay, the things that I forgot to say, Jane Krakowski is a cast member. Cannot believe I egregiously left that out. And the most important part, Schmigadoon begins April 5th on Apple TV+. I think the first 2 episodes will be airing on the same day, but you have until then to catch up on season 1, and I highly recommend it. It's very funny and very camp, and there's really great dance, and it's fun and cool.
One of my work besties teaches a like monthly like burlesque chair dance class, but you never know like what dance you're going to be showing up for. And so I don't usually get to go, but I got to go this week, and she had copied the choreography from the vigilante shit dance at Eras Tour. That was our burlesque chair choreography this week. So that was really exciting. And then I took Tylenol and decided that I had accidentally poisoned myself, but just found out that like I was overheated.
As someone who just took Tylenol and now has a fan on because I'm overheated, I feel really seen in that point of your week. Absolutely. Okay, let's like rough transition into a bit of news that came out just before the show started. I don't know if either of you have seen this, but it's come up in our comments about Jonathan Majors was arrested earlier today for assault allegations. I don't know if this comment, like, do we have a source that they're recasting Kong for sure? Because I'm looking, I'm Googling, I'm in my news, and I'm not seeing that like Marvel's actually confirming they're going to recast the character. But if that's just breaking news, then send some links so we can talk about that live. Obviously, when news like this comes out, the first thing that we would always say is we hope the victim of this is okay. They've not released who it is. They've not released the specifics of what's happened, but it literally broke just a little over an hour ago. And if you're following our friend Simone on TikTok, I'll get her for you. She's been following all this and she is covering this on her page. And I recommend following along with her work because she's phenomenal. She's, hold on, I want to make sure I get this right. Simply Simone on TikTok. And Simone does have an E on the end of it, remember? She's covering this and is going to be covering this as the story evolves. So recommend her as a source for you. But certainly bad news for the MCU to have someone who all of your next 3 phases is heavily leaning on arrested. I think he's now out on bail. But a big story that broke that heavily affects what we talk about on this show. Yeah, okay, so it's not, this is just speculation that they'll have to recast Kong based on all of this. So TMZ did put out a report. If you're looking for more information, that's where it is. Our heart goes out to the victim of this. It's outrageous. His reps are denying and all the allegations at this point. But if you're looking for a breakdown of the story so far, Simone's got you. Anything y'all want to add to that? I feel like that's really all there is to say at this point without any details, just a report.
Yeah, no, I saw it like 10 minutes before we went live and I was like, damn, that's crazy and really sad, and you can't say more until there's more information, really.
Yep. So let's like park that there. Obviously, it's something that's relevant to what we've talked about on this show. And obviously, we stand with victims. So like that's the priority in a situation like this. But let's leave it because there's nothing else to say at this point. And let's talk Daisy Jones and the Six. What a show. What a show. Now, I think let's like set the scene for everybody here with like our approach to watching this show. We, a few weeks back, like before the show had even started, sat down and said none of us had read the book, first and foremost. So we're like, we're looking at this strictly from what the show is providing us with. We are not going to rush to read the book before this comes out. We're simply going to enjoy it for what it is. We decided not to break it down chunk by chunk because of the way that they were releasing it in like these 3 or 2 episode chunks. We thought, let's watch the whole thing and then take it for what it is. And this is a show that for me personally, I was so glad that we waited until the end to talk about this as one piece because I had such different takes on what was happening with each of the chapters that they released. Like I was on a roller coaster ride with this show. So the first thing I want to do is ask each of you in terms of how you watched the show. I know we were binge watching. I know we all had kind of different takes on this. What was your reaction to watching this and kind of taking it in? Marissa, I know you kind of plowed through it in one week.
Yeah, I have been really busy for the last few weeks, like especially my evenings. So my TV watching time was occupied, as you can tell from how much I watched for the last week when it finally freed up. But yeah, I plowed through episodes 1 through 8 like over 2 nights. I think I did 1 through 5 or 6 in one night, and then whatever the rest of that chunk was the second night. And then I was waiting for the rest of them to be released. So I watched the final 2 episodes like in real time, but the rest of it I sort of binged through. I don't know. It was interesting to think about it in chunks, even as I like sort of wasn't watching it in chunks. The first 3 episodes definitely felt different than the next few. But honestly, like the first 3 episodes felt like a specific chunk, but after that point, everything sort of blurred together for me. So I don't know that my opinion episode to episode really differentiated from that point onward. And it was interesting because Liz, you had told me, because you had been watching release to release, that you found the first 3 episodes to be slow. And when I was watching them, I didn't agree with that. But once I got beyond that point, I was like, oh, now I get what she meant. Like, I think some things felt really rushed and some things felt like too much exposition. So I find that the moments that the way they divided their time and how much detail they went into on specific aspects felt sort of inconsistent to me over the course of the show, which is really interesting because I didn't necessarily feel that as I was watching it, but in retrospect, I was like, that felt different than this, which felt rushed, which like I don't know, I go all over the place with it, but it was an interesting experience to sort of be cognizant of how it was released, but not necessarily be watching it in that context.
Alexis, do you want to pick up from there? What was your take on it?
Yeah, so over the past 2 nights.
Sorry, can you pick up your microphone a little bit? I think we're getting your beautiful hair in your microphone just a little bit.
It shouldn't be that mic. Should be my stand. Hang on.
Pausing for a mic change. We love doing a live show.
For a mic change.
Love. I love. I will say, Alexis, while you're doing your mic switch there, I feel like, and I want to know everyone's thoughts in the comments on the pacing, because this is something that I think really divided people if you binged it, or if you binged pieces of it, or if you were doing it exactly as Amazon was releasing the show. I watched it exactly as it was released and felt like it was a movie I was watching every week rather than episodes specifically. Like, I don't know what happens on an episode by episode basis, but I do know them in the chunks that were, or like the chapters of what I keep referring to it as it was released. And I wonder, like, I don't know if that's how they intentionally built the show to say, like, we're not doing episode by episode. We're doing like a plot. And that's the point of Daisy Jones and the Six. But anyway, if you've watched it, let us know in the comments what you think of it. And Alexis, take it away, bestie.
Yeah, so I binged over the past 2 nights. I binged like 1 through 8. And I did find it interesting because Liz had kind of, said the first 3 episodes were a little slow, blah, blah, blah. I really enjoyed the first 3 episodes, but I kind of expected that. I like that kind of slower process setup. I will say, although I don't have a good understanding of kind of where the episode breaks were, because I did like, this was a like, oh crap, I have to go to bed. Like, I'm going to have to force myself to stop situation. Like, I went straight through. I don't think I would have continued with the show if I would have just seen this first 3 episode chunk. And to be clear, like, I think it is a good show. Like, I'm excited to talk about it. If it was a show, I think the best way to put it is like, if instead of going into Daisy Jones and the Six cold, like I did, like I had not read the book, I had seen maybe 2 promos for it, which were entirely based on like the 70s vibe. I had not even read the summary on Amazon. Like, if I went into this more like I was reading a fan fiction summary with tags on AO3, I would have not started the show. I'm not a big fan of infidelity stories. I'm not a big fan of stories with this kind of, where we romanticize trauma, but also where there are kind of like triggers, little pothole triggers, like waiting everywhere, right? Like, is this going to be a sexual assault? Like, is she going to relapse? Right? That's just not the type of media I choose to enjoy. So I think it is a good show. I am happy so many people like it, but it's not a show I would have chosen for myself necessarily. And I think if I would have just watched that first 3 episode chunk, I would have been like, okay, I'm out. Like, I'm not compelled to move forward. But because I knew there was another episode, I was like, well, I'll give it one more chance to see what this one is like. And I'll give it another chance to kind of see where the mystery ends up. So I stuck with it because of that.
You just said something that was really interesting. Did you call them pothole triggers?
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with that. I've never heard that phrasing before. I don't know if you've used it before on the show, but you said that and I was immediately felt like that is the perfect explanation for how they kind of brought and weaved things in to the show without making any of them specifically the point of the show, except for the infidelity thing, which was a theme running through it, right? This is where I feel like people who read the book have a really good insight into if those were put into the show because the book handled them in a way that made them impossible to ignore in a show version, or if the show like over or under dramatized them in order to like build character. And we know the show added things like Simone's love story with Bernie was not in the book at all. And Bernie's a new character. And that was a choice that the show made to like give her more space and like include that story, which I think is interesting. So there's a lot when it comes to like the pothole triggers, like you said, that I think is fascinating with what they decided. In terms of the pacing, I definitely got through the first 3 episodes and felt like I was missing what the show is about because I also didn't read the book. I did go into the fandom spaces on like Twitter and TikTok and was looking for like, what are the things that people love about this show so I can watch it knowing what like the conversation's going to be. And there was so much about Billy and Daisy and Billy and Daisy and Billy and Daisy. So those first 3 episodes, I was very undersatisfied because I was waiting for the arc that came in the second act, in the second week of episodes of Billy and Daisy finally like starting to fight and the songwriting and like that whole piece. So I felt like the show started on a very slow note because I was waiting for that specific plot point to come in and be made. But by the end of the series, when I realized how this is really, if it's a story about anyone, it's a story about Camila and the Billy Dunn family and how this whole journey affected them. I now appreciate those first 3 episodes way more. And I appreciate the love story and like that exposition before the 6 moves to LA versus when I was watching it, I was like, I just want to see Daisy and Billy. I want to see Daisy Jones. I want to hear her sing. Like, I don't care about any of this. So I would like to rewatch it now that I know like this is the plot we're building towards. And this is where the characters end. Like, I think I would appreciate that whole first act way more than I did at the time. So I was like, come on, let's get to the recording session. Let's hurry it up. Like I was promised enemies to lovers and I would like to see it on screen immediately. And Hannah is here who's read the books. As a book fan, I was immediately hooked in the first 3 episodes, but I can see how someone not already invested could be turned off by them. Interesting. I think the book fans really like from what I was reading on Twitter, really stuck with it too, which is interesting because sometimes you see people, not sometimes, regularly, we in the Marvel fandom see so many people who have read the comics be like, they did this, and like the suit should be a different color, or it looks like they dyed or cut a person's hair. Like immediately people are picking apart choices that were made, and I don't really think we got that much of that kind of detail picking drama from the Daisy Jones fans. It was just like, woohoo, happy to be here.
I saw that at the very beginning of the like, oh, this isn't exactly like the books, but it didn't feel aggressive to me in the way that some other fandoms can. I had another point to say. What was it? I don't remember. Oh, well.
One of the biggest changes is the music, which we're going to talk about the music in a little bit, but that was something I know from when they released the album, which was, I think, a little bit ahead of the episodes premiering. People were like, there are different lyrics in these songs, and there are different songs than what was in the book. I remember seeing a really funny TikTok, and I couldn't find it, so I have no idea who said this, but someone was like, there's a reason why some people write books and some people write songs, because the songs in the show are like, in terms of the plot being like, they were on SNL and they went to the Grammys and they were nominated for a bunch of Grammys. The songs from the book were not of that caliber that like you would buy that the songs would do that well in real life. So I am glad that they made the choice to bring in the songwriters and the artists that they did to like actually have us buy into the band, because there were some lyrics that I was like, I don't buy that this song would go number 1. Like I don't buy it. And then by the end of the show, I was like, no, it's there. Like it does make sense. But in the early episodes, especially when it was Billy writing by himself, I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. Billy Dunn needed Daisy Jones so badly to make that career happen.
They did not. That was one of my issues with the show. I was like, I do not buy that their songs were worth anything without her. Like, this is terrible music. You did not sell me on Billy as a songwriter kind of without her. And I think, I would like to assume that we've all read like a musician's AU fanfic where like the songs, the lyrics are like slam poetry and you're like, what is this? You just have to kind of like scroll through it, right? Or it's like a vague reference to like a Chris Daughtry song from like 10 years ago. And you're like, what is like scroll? And that's what Billy Dunn pre-Daisy music felt like to me. Like it felt like, the worked really hard, but was definitely not a songwriter, fan fiction energy.
Once I realized that the point of Billy Dunn's songwriting was that he needed Daisy Jones, I felt so much better about the show. Like I had a physical reaction when I realized like, oh, Daisy's gonna come in and make it better. Whoa, like I like sunk into my couch. I was like, okay, I can relax now because I was really antsy watching this band sing these stupid ass songs without any like subtext to them. I was like, I have to watch 10 episodes of this. Like but then I like fully relaxed when I realized what was going to happen. And then I went into my like, let's hurry it up. I want to see the good songs. I want to hear Daisy Jones fix all of these problems they're having. Yeah, here in the comments, I put the man on the moon. I put the dial in the tone. I was like, get me out of here. I'm like playing Evermore in the background instead. I'm like, I'm just gonna play over this for a few minutes. No thanks.
I remembered what I was going to say.
Please.
Well, also in addition and plus, I think some of that early criticism from fans of the books was about Honeycomb because they changed the lyrics, which when it was released, they were just like, this song is totally different than it is in the books. Why did you do this? And then it became a major plot point in the show that I don't believe it is in the books. I read one list of things that are different in the books versus the show. I could be wrong. But then to that point, I was specifically told, don't read the book before you watch the show. Just watch the show and see how you feel. And I felt a little wishy-washy about that for a second. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to feel like an authority enough to like do an episode of this show about a thing that was based on a book when I didn't read the book and like give opinions about it. But now I'm glad I didn't read the book because I would have known everything that was going to happen and I wouldn't have had as much of a reaction to like any of it. I would have been like, well, I know what this character's motivations are and I know when this moment has to happen and how this is all going to wrap up, like not necessarily exactly how it happens in the show, but like the map of it. And I didn't know any of that. Like I was like, it's sort of like Fleetwood Mac and there's music and I like that and that's cool. So I'm glad that I didn't read the book. That was the point that I had been trying to remember for the last 10 minutes.
I am glad to pick up on that point. And maybe this is where we can transition into some of the things that we loved in our segment called A Toast To. But before I give you my formal toast, I would just add to that, like, it's really easy to take pieces from a book that you think will work on screen and then not think about how like they market, right? So if they had said, we're going to take the music exactly as it is from the book and we're not going to change it, we're just going to like put it into like, we're going to hire like musicians to like arrange it and then ship it exactly as it was in the book. Like, I feel like that chain would not have worked. So I am glad that they kind of took what the author had originally done and said, what is the most mass market appeal in today's music to make it work? Because like they could have done so many different things with the music in the show, right? They could have made it way more 70s than it was. They could have like, they really picked like a 2020s version of 70s music and ran with it. And that was, I think, for the better of us buying the show and like buying this band and like now the commercial success that they can have with the records that you can get Aurora on record, you can get the CDs, there's merch, like all this stuff. I don't think we would have had that like piece of this puzzle, which is like a really cool piece if they had just gone with the original intention. So good for them. That's what I'd say. Good for them. Good for them for putting that together. I'm very pleased with it. But let's do some toast. I love this segment. One of my favorite segments that we do when we watch a show. We give a little toast to some of our favorite parts. I've got a brand that is not sponsoring us, so I'm not saying their name, but y'all know what it is. I'm in my diet drink era. Alexis, what are you toasting with? What's in the mug?
This is my café con leche without leche because I don't drink milk. This
Beautiful.
is my complicated vegan coffee.
It's beautiful. I love. Marissa, what are you toasting with?
Also coffee from a Chicago-based coffee chain
That does not sponsor us.
that does not sponsor us.
I love. Marissa, why don't you start us with the toast?
Oh my God. My toast is so dumb. I was in a group chat. It was asked what kind of show is Daisy Jones and the Six. And before having even seen it, I said, it's like I, Tonya. And I nailed it. I was so right. And so I'm toasting to myself.
Honestly, I saw that in the doc and I was like, damn, I wish that is what I would have gone into the show with, because that perfectly would have set my expectations like for what this show was going to be.
I want to see the vision board, right? Like in the most early stages of building the adaptation. Like I know that like I, Tonya was a reference point on a board.
Oh,
in like a boardroom in LA. Like I want to know what was on there. Like we want this and that and this. I bet they had this photo. They were like, how can we bring Finnick into the world of 70s rock music? So anyway, that's my thought there. Miss a big brain. Rebrand. We love a rebrand. Yeah, lots of alpines, lots of cats with accessories in the chat for Marissa for that one. We love so many decorated alpines. I'm going to give a toast to a very effective band camp. If you don't know, Mr. Sam and Riley, who plays Daisy Jones, they both say they did not sing and they were not singers and they were not musicians prior to this show. So there was 3 months of band camp and then the pandemic hit and they just continued 3 more months of band camp, like playing guitar, singing, learning how to do the rock star thing. And it worked because I cannot believe both of them were phenomenal. Like it's insane. And it would have made or break the show if we didn't buy it. So
listen,
a toast to successful band camp. Cheers.
A toast to a successful band camp. But let me just say, I don't know a lot about playing instruments, but I know a lot about singing. And I'm still not convinced that Sam Claflin is singing. I believe 100% Riley Keough is singing. He's so good.
I know.
Like, I cannot believe that those sounds are coming out of that man. And I have not seen any physical proof of those sounds coming directly out of his mouth. And I just want to say that Aurora is credited as Daisy Jones and the Six, not Riley Keough, Sam Claflin, Suki Waterhouse, etc. And so to me, that reads a little bit like the High School Musical album being credited to Troy and Gabriella because Zac Efron is not singing on it.
You're not buying it. You're in your conspiracy era. You don't think this man is singing it up.
I want him to be, but I haven't seen enough definitive proof. That's all I want to say.
Well, here, your definitive proof could be the whole cast is baiting that there's going to be a Daisy Jones and the Six tour.
Oh,
and
I know. I'll be front row.
There's been all of this press about like, oh, well, it's going to come down to scheduling. It's going to come down to scheduling. No, that's not how this works. If they wanted to do a tour, it would have been a part of the initial, like they wouldn't get a new contract to tour this album. Like it wouldn't be just like, oh, you know what? The show's doing really well. Let's
tour in 6 months.
Like let's just do, like, no, this is something that is already in a conversation. Like tours take so long to plan. So I'm not buying that the tour part of the conversation isn't true. Like I think it's like very much halfway there, if not already developed, and they're just baiting us with it. And that would prove if this man can really sing or not.
Well, listen, I went to High School Musical live, and you know who wasn't there? Zac Efron.
T. Okay, wait. We have a fact check. Hannah went to the vocal credits on the vinyl, and it does say Riley and Sam. All right.
Wait, what's the song where he sings ridiculously high? There's one song where he sings like ridiculously high. That's the one I need proof on. I think it's Please.
Is it?
One of them. I've been looping Aurora all day today.
We'll go to the music in a minute. Alexis, I would like to hear your toast.
I'm so sorry.
Well, first, I just have to say that this is the moment that I was informed that Zac Efron did not sing on the High School Musical.
Only the first one.
And I am now like...
Listen, let's take a moment for me to just clarify. Zac Efron did not sing on the soundtrack for High School Musical 1 because the excuse that is given is that the songs were already written. It was too late in the production for them to be changed, and he couldn't train fast enough to hit the notes. But they wrote the songs in his range for 2 and 3. So he does sing on 2 and 3. But he does not sing most of Get Your Head in the Game or Breaking Free or Start of Something New. It's Disney Channel star Drew Seeley singing most of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, putting aside that revelation and my grief for a moment, I would like to toast to, this is going to sound ridiculous. I was clearly not on the same vibe as Liz and Marissa, but I would like to toast to the lamps.
This is valid. This is valid.
So correct vibe.
There were some very good lamps in this show, and I wanted all of them.
The set designers, genuinely. I think the set designers and the lighting designers should be campaigned for technical awards.
Seriously.
It was beautiful.
It was like commitment beyond most like period shows I see. Especially of this era where you can like fake some stuff to be more modern. They committed hard.
Yeah. That was a very, if you were, I'm going to really like date myself here. Not really date, but just like give you a piece of Liz lore. Like the Bohemian Rhapsody Twitter era, right after that movie came out, there was such a niche of a conversation about the set design in that movie and like the accuracy and the inaccuracy in the recording studios and comparing them to the real studios that Queen was recording at. And that was something when I went to this show, I was like, I'm really interested to see their take on 70s recording and like just like that whole thing. So I was like watching it. I was like, what are they doing? What does their studio look like? Like, we know they're spending a lot of time in the studio. They can't fuck it up. Like, it has to be accurate. So I saw less complaints about Daisy Jones and the Six time accuracy to like recording booths specifically. But I did, within that like vein of watching, also take note that the lamps were stunning.
Yes, my one gripe. I am a 70s girly. I'm more of a mid-century modern girly if we're being technical, but I'm a 70s girly, right? There were items from this show that I was like, oh, I have that. That's right here. Like, I'm looking at that. But my major gripe was that there was a Pyrex carafe and there were a set of stamped glasses that they didn't show us the pattern on. And I am invested in which pattern of Pyrex like gold and glass carafe they had, and he like sets it behind a plant, and I was like, how dare you tease that and not show me like which one you ended up with? That would tell me a lot about this family situation.
I think if you made a video about that and tagged Amazon Prime, they'd be like, we didn't know people were interested in learning more about this.
Are you kidding me? There's a whole like subsection of TikTok about Pyrex.
So I think you need to post a video and expose them and get all of Pyrex TikTok together and pressure Prime Video into revealing what was used. I think you have the power to do that.
Pyrex TikTok, we ride at dawn.
And that's the highlight video, everybody. Marissa, make a note at the hour mark. There we go. I'm obsessed. Okay, with that said, lots to toast to in this show. also lots of WTF moments. So let's transition into our WTF moment of the show. I forgot to write one down, so we're not going to start with me. Marissa, would you like to start this section?
Yes. My WTF moment of the show is the quick and swift departure to Mamma Mia. I could not have anticipated that. We suddenly ended up on a Grecian island. There was a spontaneous wedding. Everyone was wearing flowy dresses. Half the sets looked like they came exactly out of Mamma Mia. Was not expecting that. Not a good or a bad WTF. Just truly could not have anticipated. That was something that I would not have guessed knowing this show.
I think historically, a lot of our WTF moments have been like angry coded or like frustrated coded. But I agree with you. For any moments to me that were like, what the fuck related, it wasn't like angry. It was just like, what the fuck? What is that? What? Alexis, yours I think was a little angry coded, and I think we are all standing firmly behind you on this one. So why don't you speak for the class and share your moment of the week?
Listen, my disclaimer to this is that there are two names that I routinely pronounce incorrectly on this show, especially. Peter Krause would be one of them, because when I first heard his name, it was Peter Krause, and I blame Oliver Stark for that. And the second is the name I'm about to say, and that is Timothy Oliphant. Is it Font or Fat? Do we know?
Nobody knows. I don't think he even knows.
Okay, so Mr. Raylan Givens is in this show, and he looks like a disaster every time he's on screen. I did not expect him to be in the show, and I certainly did not expect a man that, like, I watched Justified. I was a big fan of the show. I have only heard people talk about this man as if he is like Daddy TM, and then to see him show up in this and look like an absolute like disaster, I was like, the hell did you do to this man? Like, what did you do?
Jump scare.
Oh my God, so bad.
Oh no.
It is so bad. Marissa, why?
I don't know. Listen, most of the hair on this show grew out of people's heads. His did not. I don't think it grew out of anybody's head. I think it's just plastic. It's so bad. It's like 3 inches above his head. And I know what the reference is. It's like a Mick Jagger, Steven Tyler type vibe, but it looks so fake. Hold on, let me find him 20 years later too, because that's not any better.
I want to quickly say that my WTF moment is the people that grew their own hair looks for the show that I thought for sure was wigs. If you have not seen Marissa's video where Marissa broke down what was real hair and what was a wig on the show, it's outrageous. Some of the looks that I was like, that is a horrible wig, only to discover it was someone's real hair.
Well, listen, they had a 2-year pause in production because of the pandemic. Like, they just kept growing their hair. Like, they had a do not cut clause in their contracts. I researched, I read articles. They had a do not cut clause in their contracts. And because they were paused for like a year and a half, their hair just kept growing. And then they showed back up and they were like, great, we're not going to touch it.
I think that if you went back to 2014 and showed the Finnick Odair fans the Billy Dunn hair, they would have lost their minds. Like you know, the like, what food would you bring back to the Victorian era to feed a child? Like that, it's the same thing. If you went back to 2014 and showed the Hunger Games fandom a photo of Billy Dunn, they would not make it. They would not make it. They'd be, yeah, like if you went back with this.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's you know what? I don't think it would have been accepted in 2014, but today it's beautiful. But in the era of, well, maybe hairstyles did have long hair. Oh no, in 2014 it was all, everyone was going up. The hair was all up. And this is kind of an example of that. But
yes.
Yeah. So tonight, the whole cast of Daisy Jones and the Six, or most of the cast, was live on the Prime Video Instagram account. And Sam was on, and he was late, and then comes in with a huge glass of wine and was like, I was asleep. I put my kids to bed, and then I fell asleep, and now I'm drinking wine, and I'm awake trying to do this live, and it was a bit of a mess. And his hair is not long anymore. It's more like this length, and it was all kind of down on his forehead, and the whole chat was like, grow your hair back out. Grow your hair back out. It looks good long.
Well, is in his defense, if he was in the UK, it was like 11 p.m. when they started.
It was like he was, and then he got the name of a game wrong. They were doing, oh my God, hold on, I have it here. They were trying to do kiss, marry, avoid, and he was like, I'd fuck and I'd kill. Everyone was like, no, it's not what he was like, oh, poor guy is just very tired. Anyway, let's leave that there. Anything else we want to say on Wigs while we're on this topic? Marissa, do you have anything you want to walk us through? Anything you want to express?
I would like to apologize formally for doubting my gut on Camilla's 20 years later look. I hadn't watched the finale when I made the video, so just know that for context. I do apologize. I knew it was a wig. I second guessed myself and I was like, I don't want to be seen lying on the internet. And so I was like, maybe, but it is. So sorry.
We love an apology. This is a night of apologies on Welfare the After Party. It's great. Okay. A comment coming in about Suki. Suki is mentioned in our next segment. So let's just jump right in. Roses and thorns from the show. Alexis, I know you have some notes on Suki. I also want to say that Suki is one of my thorns. So maybe I'll jump in and go first here, and then Alexis can counter it with a rose about Suki. Okay, so my rose about the show is that parallel they did about the like, I'm broken, I don't want to be broken with the songwriting, and then the finale. I thought that was really well done. I think it particularly stood out to me because just in general with some of the shows we've been talking about, there have been parallels that have not worked for me. So I think I was kind of satisfied just for once seeing a parallel work. I was like, hooray! They like, it's like when you watch a figure skater stick the landing on a triple axel or something and you're like, hooray! I had that reaction to seeing the parallel land. I was like, whoo, they did it. That's great. Like very happy for them. Another rose was, I think it was episode 7 or episode 8, the whole episode where the river was the song that was kind of the song they kept coming back to. I thought that was so beautifully done, and the way they kept looping Daisy singing that like bridge. Oh, that was like huge for me. I thought that was so good. But my thorn was that Suki did not get a solo. I thought that was wild that you're going to cast Suki Waterhouse, who's one of the biggest pop stars on the planet at the moment, like really up and coming superstar, and she did not have the musical presence in the show that I thought she was going to have. Like she was a major player. I loved Karen as a character. I thought she was like really well done, but like even in the recording sessions, like they could have given her like a bit where she was recording the backup vocal or just, I don't know. I was a little bit shocked. And I don't know if maybe it was in her contract. Like sometimes when musicians are cast in shows like this, there's really specific parameters around what they can sing. Because like technically their label owns their music. Like maybe there was something, I don't know. But I was just like shocked. Like by the end, like I was the whole time I was watching up until the end of the finale, I was waiting for Suki to have like a breakout moment, and we didn't really get it. And my king, Warren, the drummer, I loved him, and I wanted more from him, and I thought we got more from him at the end. But I wish that we had more of him everywhere. I thought he was a king. He was great. I loved him. So more Warren, please. That's it for me. Alexis, do you want to go next? Because you have something to say about Suki as well. So that's kind of a nice transition.
Yeah. So my rose was anything that Suki Waterhouse was wearing, was her hair. I thought she was one of the, like for the majority of the characters, like in the 20 years in the future, like in our future time, their looks were either neutral or worse to me. But like hers was good. Like I was like, you still look fantastic, right? Like I just want to look like Suki Waterhouse looked in this show every day of my life. That is what I want for myself. So her whole aesthetic was my rose. My thorn I discussed earlier, but my thorn was the fact that I was supposed to believe that these men were writing decent music without her. And I know that like the plot of the show, or were without Daisy. And I know that the plot of the show was that like Daisy comes in and makes their music better. I get that. But like I am supposed to believe these men had like good, solid music that people wanted without Daisy. And to me, like, so that was my thorn. I did not buy into that premise.
No, you're absolutely right, because we're supposed to buy that they have enough talent and success that they can convince Karen to leave her broken band situation and come join the Dunn brothers, and that Timothy Oliphant, whose character name I don't remember, kind of like is able to like give them advice and help them pick up a little bit. Like, and I wasn't fully convinced that the Man on the Moon song wouldn't be enough for those types of people to be like, I think there's something there. But maybe it's all in Billy Dunn, the charming Billy Dunn, and believing that this white man can make it. Not that off for the 70s. Marissa, over to you.
Okay, great. My rose are the bops. There's some great music and there's some great needle drops too. I'm not the most versed in like 70s music, but we had some Queen Carol rep. Carol King, actually. King Carol. All kinds of fun needle drops. And honestly, most of the songs are really good. Some of them, but like I've been sort of looping The River. I've been looping Honeycomb. What's the other one? Look at Us Now.
Regret
That
Me.
is Honeycomb. Yeah, Love Regret Me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bops. The Aurora album has like over 2 million monthly listens, which is crazy because it's only a month old. And I'm gonna make that 3 million, I think. I'm into it. And then my thorn.
Listen on 5x speed, and you yourself are gonna find a way to warp time, so you add 1 million listens on your own. I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. But my thorn is Mr. Piece of Shit Irish Prince Man. The Little Prince. I have a lot of negative feelings towards this man. I, immediately was like, I don't trust you. I don't care what your motivations are. You're not here to be a positive influence, blah, blah, blah. And then there was a single second where I was like, I think he might just love her and want to be supportive and like is happy to be with her. And then immediately I turned on him again. So that man, whose name I refuse to learn, goodbye.
If there's one thing we're going to do on this show, it's refuse to learn the name of a man that we don't like. I'm obsessed.
Too true.
I want to ask you, Alexis, like when we started learning about this guy and he was trying to say he was like a student and we had that moment of like, maybe he's an academic. Did you like, what was your reaction to that? Because I had at least 3 whole seconds of being like an academic. I can't wait to hear what Alexis thinks. And obviously we learned what he really was, but did you have any kind of like seeing through the bullshit?
Yeah, honestly, as soon as he said it, because he had already mentioned the houses, I was like, and he's a prince, and he's a politician, right? Like I cannot imagine a student on Earth working on their dissertation that owns like 3 homes. I am an anomaly to be getting a master's and own my home. Like everybody is like, you're lying. Like that makes no sense whatsoever. You have a mortgage? How? Right? And it is a difficult balancing act. So to have 3 in like multiple countries, it's like
including a castle. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, and then he's like, it's my family's castle. There's this one moment in, I think, episode 8 when he's on the tour bus and he's just like leaning back against the couch in Daisy's bus. And he's like, I'm a student of life. And I'm like, I want to slap you in the face.
There is this really interesting like reverse that they kind of do where like Daisy's going to write off of his life And then they go to America and he's like, no, I'm going to ride off of her life. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Like as like they really are just using each other, but then they switch why and how they're using each other. Anyway, but that was about as interesting as he got for me. And then you get that wicked, and I say wicked, not like good, but like the wicked scene of when Daisy's in the shower and he decides to leave, and then Billy's the one that stays with her. And if you know anything about Liz and the enemies to lover arc, that is a like niche of enemies to lovers that like I eat it up. It's like a little buffet for me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to pile my plate. I'm going to rewind it. I'm going to replay it. Like, I think I watched that scene a few times to like really see it from every angle and analyze it from every angle. It is a moment. Oh, it's juicy. Shall we talk
about that? Can I tell you, for that being the moment that I was like caught up with, and then I had to wait for the next drop of episodes, that was horrible. I was desperate. And I think I only had to wait like 4 days or something, but I was like, wow, what a moment.
I will say, I had the same reaction, but I had the other arcs behind me that I felt like I knew how to cope with waiting for the next set of episodes. Do you know what I mean? So I was okay. And then I went down the rabbit hole of like Twitter and TikTok and everything to kind of fill in some gaps. And then the way that they pick it up with like Daisy waking up, her storming into Billy's room, Billy's like a wreck, and the kind of really quick recovery from that moment, I was a bit disappointed with. I was a bit disappointed with, because it's like it happens and then it's over and then we're on to the next thing. I feel like that the fallout of that needed like a little bit more room for me. Like, I think even if like we had seen Billy says, he's like, well, I decided to leave because I didn't want to be there when you woke up because I didn't think you'd want me there. Or like whatever it is that he says, it's like that. I would have liked to have seen that, because I feel like that really plays into what happens in that final arc with Billy like struggling with his feelings for Daisy versus his wife. But instead he's like, he just says it and then we're back into the plot of what's happening with the band.
Yeah.
Marissa, what do you think on that?
I don't know. I was mostly shocked that little piece of shit Prince was still there, that he came back. And it was like, I guess I get it. He like had to make sure she didn't expire, probably for just legal purposes. But like, I was shocked. I thought he was gone forever. And then he's the one that's there with her when she wakes up instead of Billy. I was furious. And so I appreciated her throwing statues and kicking him out. And that whole moment felt like vindication for me. But yeah, they're like the turn in their relationship, Billy and Daisy, felt rushed to me, I think, in that.
Yeah. And that like, specific, like, yeah, we could have had like even 5 more minutes of that. And I think it would have been like enough to push me through. But anyway, I got over it pretty quick, because then we were back into the throes of enemies to lovers. And I was like, oh, beautiful. Let's just continue with the angst. So good. Okay. Let's pause and kind of take this back to like a 3,000 feet down looking level. I thought we could do some rapid fire of what we thought of the characters. And we've already talked about a lot of the characters, but especially towards the end, there's so much you can say about the way that they wrap some of these stories, the way they introduce some of these characters, the arcs that we did not get. So why don't we do like some rapid fire around what we think of each of the characters, like a word, or if you have a line from your notes that you took while watching the show that you want to throw in as your example of what you thought of someone. I have some really short kind of statements that sum up novels worth of thoughts from me. And if you watch the show, play along in the chat and let us know what you think of the characters as we go. I think we have some like already coming in. So let's do that. What do we say? Shall we start with Billy Dunn? Shall we start with Billy Dunn?
Shall we?
Get him just out of the way so I can move on. So I wrote, "You are toxic and I love you." But I don't know if I actually agree with that. I don't know if I think Billy Dunn is toxic or just like a mess. I think Billy Dunn...
I think he's an idiot.
Billy Dunn is a mess and an idiot and is going through a lot. And I love him. I thought he was a great character. I ate it up. Yum, yum, yum. Marissa?
I concur with that. If he ever told anyone the actual truth and could accept his vulnerability, he would have been much happier. But what I actually want to say is that his 20 years later blowout is so fucking funny. That's my comment on Billy Dunn.
Mm-hmm. That's so fair. Wow. What an assessment. And we don't know, like, is that a choice that he made every day? Is that something he specifically did for recording with Jules? Like, I want to know.
Is that a choice that he made every day?
Seriously. Oh.
Like, did his wife die and he was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a blowout every day. Like, what was it?
I read some interviews with the one of the hair designers, and she was like, I wanted him to look like a Banana Republic model. And I was like, where does that come from?
Oh. Alexis, your thought on Billy Dunn?
Listen, I really wanted to like Billy Dunn. However, I have dated Billy Dunn, and I have dated a man who was so Billy Dunn that I became paranoid into the 3rd episode of this show and went through the entire technical list to ensure that he had not worked on this show. So that is I can't.
Wow. That's so valid and leaves so much to think about maybe in the post-show conversation. I will say, okay, if you had a Billy Dunn, were you Camila or were you like Karen or like?
I was somewhere, I would put myself between a Karen and a Daisy. This was
I love it. I love it.
Like Alexis's art career phase. So I was very down to be somebody's muse, but I was a little too feisty to be passive about it. So like somewhere in the middle there, yeah.
Oh, you're such a queen. I think you could really do the Daisy Jones hair with like the way your bangs are right now too, by the way. So I just want to also throw that out there. Yeah. Get you some like a big barrel curl, not curl, but a big barrel wave kind of situation. Anyway, let's park that and revisit in the post show. Let's talk about Daisy Jones. My note was protect at all cost hair slays. And that kind of also is what I think of Alexis, protect at all cost hair slays. So it's all lining up for me. Marissa, what would you like to add?
This is a broader conversation that we can get to when we're done with this rapid fire, because this is not a rapid fire thought. But for a character that has almost no depth, she is deeply interesting to me.
Wow, that's profound and very well said. I agree. Alexis, where do you come in on Daisy Jones?
I'm with you on Daisy. I really liked her hair, and I really liked her ability to pull off a muumuu.
Yep. All right. I think that's a perfect summary of Daisy Jones. We'll come back to this. Camila, my thought is that was the performance of the show. That's like a standout performance of the year, maybe for me, especially as someone that did not understand the role of that character in the show. And then I said, you are an icon, a legend. You should be cast in everything. So that's my thought. Marissa?
She dressed down Billy Dunn several times, and I was clapping for her every time. I was cheering along, applauding. On their first tour, when she shows up and he's like on a bender, I was ready to like break through my TV in her defense. So I'm Team Camilla.
Alexis?
I thought the character was great, and I thought the performance was good. The performance was so good to me, though, that I could not buy in to the Billy and Daisy romance. I don't think the show would have worked without how good her performance was, but then that meant that the romance, like the main romance in the show, did not work for me because I liked her so much.
If I can pick up on that for a second, I feel like she caused me to reflect on how many times we see like the infidelity trope where the wife is not like, the wife turns into the very stereotypical 70s, 80s, 90s, like housewife trope and like all the misogyny that goes into that trope. She stayed slaying. Like every time we saw her, she was like dressed for the gods. Hair, slayed. Makeup, slayed. Looking like a baddie. Like there was no point in which we lost her to the house, like a traditional housewife trope, to a traditional motherhood trope that's so embedded in like women lose their value, lose their attractiveness, whatever, once they've reached these stages of life. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was kind of a statement for this show to make, to be like, no, like Camila is this person. She does not lose herself. She does not change. Billy Dunn and Daisy Jones are like a separate entity. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Arguably, the richer she got, the hotter she got. Arguably.
The delivery to me of I just had dinner with a friend, like iconic. I mean, that whole like her dress, her look, the delivery, like just walking off. Like we have seen him stay up at the house like all night. And she's just like, I had dinner with friends, period. Like, moving on. Slay.
And what?
Slay. And what? Okay, I can talk about her all night, but let's move on to Eddie. Eddie. He was interesting to me for a variety of reasons, but I'll sum it up by saying I felt like the finale arc was a little too late for me. Marissa?
Most of my notes about Eddie were along the lines of fuck this guy. Not a fan.
Alexis?
I cared so little about Eddie, I just had to Google which one he was. So
slay. Absolutely. Let's just move on from Eddie. Absolutely. I will say on the live, he was very charming and wonderful. So I feel like he really, now that I've seen the man behind the performance, I'm like, oh, I think you did a great job, because this is clearly the opposite of who you are as a person. So like, good for him. But also the character, I would leave on the buffet table maybe. Simone. My thought on Simone comes from the cast live that just happened, where she revealed that there was a scene cut where Teddy Price reveals to Simone that she's been dropped by the label because of all of the stuff with Bernie being like maybe discovered by the label. I don't know if it's directly from the book or not, so someone's gonna have to fill me in if you've read the book, if it's direct from book or if it was something they added to the show. But regardless, they drop that, and I would like to see it because I feel like we deserve it. Simone had such a great plot, and then it kind of, I felt that missing arc for her at the end. Like, I feel like we saw some of it and then we didn't see some of it. And it was like, okay. And I wish we had that scene. So that's where I come in with Simone. Marissa.
I wish there had been a prettier bow on the end of her story. I think mostly. She did a lot of emotional labor on Daisy's behalf. And I would have liked to see sort of how that aspect of her life ironed out. Rather than like, yep. I have a club and I sing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm with you. Alexis?
I liked Simone. I did not like Simone in this story. I felt like she was always kind of an afterthought, and her relationship with Daisy in the afterthoughtness made me a little uncomfortable. But I would have loved a Simone series, like a Daisy Jones and the Six, but Simone and like her adventures, because I liked the character.
And I like Hannah's comment coming in here, which I think adds to what you're saying, Alexis, that all of that was added to the show. Simone doesn't do much in the book except be a friend to Daisy and then go off and have a successful career. So it's like they built a character that had less in the book, but was it enough to justify it? Like, if you're going to do it, maybe go the full 10 yards with it. Okay, let's leave Simone there and go on to Karen, our beloved Suki. My thought is also my thorn that I said earlier, which is you're going to cast Suki Waterhouse and not give her one solo. Not a slay. Marissa.
Most of my notes about Karen were in the realm of our Pats, can you fight? Very much Joe Alwyn, can you fight? But directed at Robert Pattinson.
Yep, fully. Yep. We need to know. You might be the Batman, but can you fight for Suki?
Yeah, like I know you can put on black eyeliner or glitter in the sunshine, but can you fight really?
Not as much as Marissa can. Alexis, your thought?
Listen, same. I would also just like to say, like, Karen, my beloved, there was not a moment that I did not love Karen.
The scene that really stood out to me is the moment where I was like, I love what they're doing with her, was when she bought the record for the fan at the shop. That was just like so slay to me. It's like, oh yeah, Karen's that bitch. Like, about it.
Also, it's so funny and silly, but I love the moment where she's talking to the pre-med student. The pre-med student is like, he's so sexy. And she's like, yeah.
Is he?
Very Alexis coded scene. Very Alexis coded scene. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go. Let's talk about Graham, Mr. Graham Dunn. So my thought is, when it comes to Graham, I'm going to read it exactly as I wrote it down. We rarely get one-dimensional men whose entire purpose is to revolve around a woman. So it's nice to see the worst trope in media, gender reversed. If we were going to have anyone pining after anyone in this show, I'm glad it was Graham Dunn. Marissa?
He's sort of just like the nice guy trope, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But he just like sort of continues to get shafted a little bit. Like Billy takes over his band. He's in love with Karen, but she has other goals and aspirations. Like, it's just like, sorry.
Worst hair in the show. Can we say that? Can we give him the crown for worst hair in the show?
We could if Timothy Oliphant didn't exist.
It's very fair. He's the runner-up. He's the runner-up.
But I do think, to wrap the point on Graham's hair, I think he has bad hair on purpose so he doesn't look as hot as Billy.
Oh, that's very valid, actually.
He has to be oh, my brother is so much cooler than me.
Right. I didn't consider that. A great point. Alexis, your thought.
Listen, I do not believe that the character or the actor has ever touched a surfboard.
Well, okay, he's doing a play right now at the Lincoln Center, and on the live when he popped in, I was like, you are a theater kid. Like, that's who this man is. Like, not an LA surfer. No.
He was waxing that thing, and I was like, you have no idea what you're like. What is that? Yep. 1,000%. Yep. Okay, and let's go to our last member of the band, which is Warren Rhodes. My whole thought is he's a king.
Yeah.
Marissa?
He was a little mystery, and I love the reveal of his happy ever after. Proud of him.
Alexis?
Warren's the bestie that ended up with the boat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will also say that to me, in the flash forwards that we got, like the current day, not current day, I think it was supposed to be in the 90s, but in the flash forwards, he, to me, best embodied the 70s rocker stereotype. He was the one that had the, like, we did so many drugs, we had such a good time.
He was just there to have fun.
That, like, spoke to me. I feel like he took that in a way that, like, I think even though the characters all end up in such different places, we could have had a little bit more of that from them from time to time. And he just sold it the whole way through for me. So, King. We love. Anything else we want to say on any of those characters before we keep going? No? Okay,
We nailed it. We
did it. Okay. The music. Does anyone have a favorite song? We've already talked a little bit about the music, but does anyone have like a music moment from the show or a song that really stands out to them? I've already said mine was The River, and the whole like segue with Daisy singing that bridge over and over and over again, kind of slapping you across the face with it. I loved it. I thought that was so cool. So that was my music moment from the show that really stuck with me. Marissa?
I agree. That's the like, that was like what did it for me, where like I justified like the format, the music, like, yeah, that was a moment.
Alexis, does one stand out to you?
I have two. One was just the general first like songwriting moment between the two of them, all the way to the like, well, let's get in the car. Like that was the moment that I was like, damn, if Camilla wasn't in this show, I would be all in for like this like I would completely buy into this. Like that is romance gold for me. But I am also not as much as you are, Liz, but I'm also a little bit of a Reputation girly. And as a little bit of a Reputation girly, Regret Me was one of my favorite moments in the show. I love some not so passive aggression through music.
Yeah.
So well
Oh my
done.
God, wait, what's the one? Oh, what's the one that he like writes for her in a rage and he makes her sing after he kisses her? It's like easier to lose than whatever. That is also a moment for me.
Yeah, easier to miss me.
Yes. Listening to that like after watching the episode and just like listening to the lyrics, I was like, damn, it's like scolding. Yes, more fun to miss. Great.
He really learned how to write a song. Like, yeah. I was like, that came from Billy Dunn.
Yeah. Well, he was inspired by her. Let's be real.
And I think that's one of the interesting things too, because something that I think that they did well was stay consistent with like what he learned from her in him placing it in future songs, because More Fun to Miss almost has a heavy-handed amount of simile and metaphor, which was something in the beginning. He was like, you can just say it. And that song is almost all simile and metaphor. So not only was it like an FU, but it was like, here's an FU in your style.
Yeah.
I love that point. That is such a good point to make, Alexis. It's like, not only am I going to roast you, I'm doing it in your own language, so it hurts even more. Whew, I did not consider that. I love it. I love it. We need to talk about this comment. My favorite Karen line from the book is, Billy often thinks he deserves a sticker for treating women like people. I love Karen. Oh my God. That is so good. And that really does sum up Billy Dunn, I think, in a really nice, pretty bow. Okay, let's talk about the songwriting scene and the songwriting episode, maybe, since it was brought up. That was the moment that I like went from a casual viewer of the show to like deep diving all the way into the show. That really, really spoke to me and really got to that's when we got to the meat of what was happening. Alexis, you also had like a reaction response to watching that.
So good. I think it's very difficult for media to both accurately and romantically portray that process, right? There is something so intimate about writing songs about your life with somebody else, with having discussions about like your writing and your style and like that, what that looks like. And I don't always know that media does a great job at like making that come across in an accurate way, where there is argument, there is fire, but like there is passion, but there are resolutions to that. And I think this show not only gave kind of like an accurate portrayal of that process, but also a really romantic portrayal of that process. Even at times against the characters' wishes, right? There were definite moments where they were butting up against the idea of that romance in that scene. So yeah, totally obsessed with it.
Perfectly said by Alexis, just Alexis Blake. Perfectly said. One thing that really changed me in that, like changed my mind about it and helped me see the show in a different way, was like that reveal of we can be this for each other, or however that was framed, like that. And that's something that I think is really hard to do. And sometimes it becomes really black and white, like, oh, we can be this for each other, so then we immediately are this for each other, right? But it was almost presented within that tension of like, we can just have this romantic tension, this songwriting tension. Like, you can be the real Billy Dunn around me and I can be the real Daisy Jones around you. And it does not resolve any of the shit that we're going through. It's just an added stake. And I feel like the times I've seen this on screen, it's been too much like, oh, we can be this for each other. And they just throw everything else out the window. Like, it just moves them in a whole new path. And I was just so happy that they managed to do it in such like a finely tuned way. It was, to me, it was like rolling together the perfect sushi roll. It was just like so methodically, thoughtfully done. It was not like a mess. It was just like it was just perfect. Yum, yum, yum. I ate it up. That was my thought on that whole sequence.
There were two things that came after it that I really liked too. One was the beat about like they would leave bickering in the morning and they would come back giggling at night. Like, and that kind of goes to what you're saying, Liz, like that sold me on, like, we have not solved all our problems. Like this is still an ongoing thing. But the other beat that really got me, and this is something that Sly and I actually, Sly, who's not here with us tonight, but they and I had this conversation this week about like learning a language for another person and like how intimate that process is. Though I did ding a little bit on none of the band knowing what swampy meant. That may be an era thing. Now everybody knows, especially living in the South, like everybody knows. Nobody would be like, what does swampy mean? But I swooned over her being like swampy and kind of snapping at Billy and Billy translating. Like she wants more of this here and more of that there. I was like, oh God, but Camilla.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because like something that I love in enemies to lovers tension is the idea of like translating against your will. To me, that's one of like the sexiest things you can bring into that trope. Like the idea of like, we have all this shit and I hate you most of the time, but I understand you so intimately and so well that I'm translating without even realizing it. Like I didn't even know that I knew you so well that I could pick up on these things or understand your verbiage in a way others cannot. Like that is such a juicy thing. And when it's done as well as it was in this show, it's like exactly like you said, like, oh shit, but I'm rooting for Camilla, but this now exists. Like it's good. So I'm glad that you explained it in the way you did because I picked up on it and didn't have the right way to express it. And I'm glad that you also enjoyed that as much as I did because I was like, am I going to be the only one doing this episode being like, the tension was great. So I'm glad we're in this together. And Marissa's coming back. Marissa's webcam just decided to not work for a few minutes. So let's just keep going with it, Marissa. Why not? We'll come back. We're going to talk about wigs, but obviously that's Marissa's bread and butter. And we already talked a lot about wigs. So let's just keep it moving. Okay, let's talk about the doc style of this. I think, Alexis, you had some thoughts on this one. And as people that did not read the book, it was interesting to see like that as the like big point of tension, maybe or not, or one of the big points that tension is able to draw from in the book, according to the fans, pop into this show style, which is so much harder to pull off. And they really used the trope and then did not use the trope. So where do you come in on like doc style media?
Yeah, I loved the idea of it here. And I, Liz, you had mentioned, I think in the notes, like that is really the only way to tell that the kind of story that was in the book in a film version. And I agree with that. I think though a lot of it to me, and to be honest, that if it would not have been a documentary style project, I would have also struggled to stay with it, right? One of the main things that pulled me into this story was that there was some sort of a mystery, right? There was like we knew that like they were together 20 years later because something had happened, right? And I wanted to solve that mystery. But I also left feeling like it was not consistently used. Like there were some episodes where I felt like it almost wasn't in the episode at all. And there were some episodes where I felt like it was used the appropriate amount. The other thing was that it felt like a missed opportunity to me. And I think that may be because this, they started working on this before COVID. And I would say COVID on really like that era of time really shaped and changed some of the formatting that we see in the like made for Hulu, made for Netflix style documentaries. Something that we've seen a lot in those in the past couple years is really playing with the lower third. So like how their name is coming up on the bottom of the screen. And I felt like for a show like this, where we're kind of learning what their relationships are in this kind of mismatched style, playing with those lower thirds would have been really clever, would have been a really interesting way to kind of keep me guessing and keep me in the story. And so like that felt like a missed opportunity. We also hear the narrator asking the questions in some episodes, but not others, which felt like a missed opportunity. And one of my favorite things that we see a lot in documentaries, McMillions and on, right, is where a person being interviewed for the documentary will do something or say something and they'll be like, that's not going to make it to final cut, right? And you see that whole bit. And this story where they all kind of have alternate perceptions about what happened, even to the point where Daisy is like, well, what did he tell you, right? Would have been a great moment to do one of those. Like, I feel like it would have felt more real and less like rehearsed and polished if we would have had a like, but you're not going to put that in the final cut moment. Or even a like, we were doing a lot of drugs. Can I say that? Like something like that, I think would have really rounded out the kind of documentary vibe.
I would add one thing, which is I feel like we had two things. We had the interviews and we had the flashbacks. But to me, I didn't buy it because of everything you just said. And I feel like we needed one more thing. Like we needed them looking at the photos, or we needed them watching a performance back, or we needed them showing who we find out to be Jules, showing Jules their homes, or like I didn't buy that what was being filmed was enough to actually make into a documentary, which is what we were told was happening. Like, so I would have liked, like, if we had done an episode, maybe even early on, like episode 2 or something, where the intro to the episode was all of them like, here's the gold record we had for Aurora, or like, here's like the Grammy we won physically in my hand. Like, I think I would have bought it differently, but because so many elements were missing, like everything you said, Alexis, plus it was just either now or then, and the then was not a physical thing that they had.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And I know there's some debate, like in the flashback, I can't remember which song it is, but there's debate over who writes the lyrics. Like Billy tells Camilla that like, you know, Daisy wrote it. And then Daisy's like, I don't know why you would say that. You know, since we know who is, you know, at the end, we learn who is doing the documentary. I could believe that she would have access to some of those like raw notes. I think that could have been something, to your point, Liz, too, where she could have been like, oh, really? Because I have this, like, are you looking at this in your handwriting? Like what kind of went on there? I think that would have been.
Yeah, like the artifacts being like, is this not your songwriting book? Look at this. Like, that's not your penmanship. Like, who wrote it? Like,
Exhibit A.
Yeah, absolutely. Marissa, where do you come in on this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think sort of also to what Hannah is saying here, it's like the production of it is sort of weird to me because in the book, from what I know and what I've gathered, having not read it, it's essentially just an oral history, like for a book, not a documentary. So how they translated that to screen is just sitting and giving an oral history. But the way that it is produced gives it the feeling of a documentary. It has very much the style of a documentary. The, you know, sets, the interview sets are very documentary style. The cinematography is very documentary style, like talking head documentary style. But then you find out it's all being filmed on a camcorder from the 90s. And like, I just don't believe that the frame of Daisy Jones, like with this pull focus, like hazy background of her in a studio, like is being filmed on a camcorder from the 90s. Like it's there, it feels disjointed, the like production value of the footage versus what it's actually being filmed on. And there's no conversation as to the purpose of it. Like, I don't really understand why Julia is taking these interviews and why it had to be at this moment and like what led her to this, which I think also, is something that happens in the book.
If I can just jump in on that really specifically, like once we learn the fate of Camila and the fact that she did get an interview done, like, what point in time are we now at? Like, did we start this and then pause it when that whole situation unfolded and then we continued it? Like, did we like shoot mom and then just stop and then do the whole band? Like, what? I feel like I lose some timeline in all of this. Like, when was the decision made to do this oral history? How far in the future are we from the point in time in which Camila is not with us anymore? Like, I get lost along the way there. And I also think like these flash forwards are supposed to be in the 90s, which is interesting. And if you think of like 90s filmmaking and like the kind of hype of anyone can film with like those camcorders, maybe not being as accessible as they are today, but you get this like wave of people doing home video and how exciting that is. And like that specific point in time to be picking up the recorder and having like this mystery of this famous band at your fingertips. Like I feel like we could have had more fun with her, like following dad through the home, being like, oh, like show me on like the really old, like Steadicam, like all of the shit you kept from those years. Like there's a piece of culture there that could have been tapped into. And I even was just Googling, like, I feel like this is fresh in my mind because of the Fabelmans and the idea of like Steven Spielberg seeing his life as a movie and like all like processing his life as a movie. Like that, to me, that's 90s culture too, even though the Fabelmans is set way further back. Like that, to me, that's all connected. And they could have also played with that maybe a little bit. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe not yet, but it's like getting to the MTV behind the music sort of era.
Yes, exactly.
Where are they nows, those kind of things. So it's like I don't get the motivation behind it.
Yeah.
Specifically for like, I don't know, there's so much more that could have been done.
And maybe part of the problem here is I was as compelled by the flash forwards as I was watching like that real time story. So maybe they thought that like the viewer experience would be better if they really leaned into the 70s stuff. But I think I would have, like, if we had almost an entire episode set in like the modern day, I think I would have loved that. I think I would have like really bought into that in a way that we didn't get because it was always just this one piece.
Yeah, I kind of missed it in the finale because it didn't really pick up 20 years later, didn't really pick up until like the end of the episode. You got like a few you got a lot of like expressions of like, this day, but like you didn't get a lot of talking head commentary and I missed it. Like the first 20 minutes of the finale was like all in real time in the 70s, which I don't know, is interesting.
This is a really interesting point that in the book, these characters are like in their 60s and 70s when they're doing these interviews in the future. So they chose to push it back to the 90s and like cast. And maybe it was because of the casting. Maybe they didn't want to double cast the characters and they knew they'd have to pick people in like the 30s to 40s age. I think, are they all in their 30s or some in their 40s? But in that age range specifically so that they could play both like the young and the young teenagers and the 30-year-olds going on tour. But let's leave that and let's move on because we only have a few minutes left in the episode and we have so much more to talk about. I love this theme. I think Alexis is the one that picked up on this. The romanticization. I'm not going to say that word, right? Did I almost say it right? Alexis. Romanticization. Thank you. Of art and trauma. Ooh. Marissa, you also have a sub point here about like the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, which has been quite a topic of conversation around Daisy Jones. So like let's like do both sides of the coin maybe. Marissa, do you want to start with this idea and this combo that's been happening across the internet about Daisy Jones as our modern day Manic Pixie Dream Girl?
Yeah. I came to it on my own pretty quickly. I think it was like episode 2, maybe 3, where I was like, Daisy Jones as the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, discuss, because in her own way she really fits the trope, and it seems to be something that's becoming part of the broader conversation, like within commentary around the project. There is I lost the link when my computer went to shit. I believe it was a New Yorker article. There's a New Yorker article about Daisy Jones and sort of how she The link was in the, yes, there it is. The link was in the doc the whole time. It's titled Daisy Jones and the Six and the Commodification of Free-Spirited Women. And sort of how, it's about sort of how Daisy as like an archetype for this like free-flowing, devil-may-care, like fly by the seat of her pants sort of character is inspirational in a really like aspirational and inspirational in ways that are sort of unattainable, and sort of how the manic pixie dream girl trope of being truly unattainable is reflected on her as a character. And it's a really interesting read and commentary on her as a person, because like she has one defining trait of like her parents didn't want her and her mom told her no one wanted to hear her sing, and like she has no friends, but she's also like, I don't know, there's so much to be said and like also nothing to be said. It's just like she is a manic pixie dream girl. She's just like someone you want to be but also can never be. And like she has no depth but also is deeply layered at this. She's a fascinating character because she's not real.
Yeah, exactly, right? So Suki did a TikTok the other day, and it wasn't about this specifically, but I also think it's the exact point here, which is like, if this show had been put out in the throes of like 2014 Wattpad, I think it's exactly what she said. Like, what would the show have been, right? Or like, how would it have been received by the public? Because it really plays into things that era of fiction and fan fiction specifically was so in tune with manic pixie dream girl tropes, and you saw it all over the place, like in popular literature, fanfic or otherwise. And like, my reflection is, I'm so glad we're getting the show today, because I think even 5 years ago we would have had a very different Daisy Jones than we got in 2023. And obviously they wrote the show, sold the show, and have been developing the show for like 5 years now. But I wonder like how much time helped Daisy and helped Riley find Daisy in a way that's reflective of like 2023 maybe, and how much worse it could have been if we had gotten the show sooner. But Alexis, I want to throw it to you because you have some really interesting points about like the women specifically of the show.
Well, I think going off what you said too, I think releasing this show now is such an interesting choice. And I know that in some ways that wasn't the choice that they intended, but part of the appeal of a show like this is the kind of peeking behind the curtain of what it's like in the music industry or the television or film industry, right? And I feel like over the last 2 or 3 years, but the last year especially, what we've heard from, like, I'm thinking here, like Pamela and Tommy and the Pamela Anderson, like, documentary debate, and every actor or singer or songwriter that has been on the Call Her Daddy podcast in the last 2 months, right? It's just kind of like criticism of the industry and the way that those industries are exploitative and, you know, traumatic and all of the stuff around that. So it feels like this kind of romanticization, see, I can't even say it, of trauma fits more in like the Walk the Line era, right? Where we were all about these industries being romantic. I feel like it works a little less now when we are actively and consistently kind of critiquing those industries for the way they have used trauma. And I think it stuck out to me because in 2010, I, in college, had to take these really obnoxious artistic vision classes. We had to take them every year. They were like 3 credit hour classes. And the entire goal of our freshman year was like, what is art? Right. And honestly, it was not like a constructive conversation. Like, if I would have walked in that room and been like, art are only things that have the Cookie Monster in them, they would have been like, that's fascinating, Alexis, like 3 points for Slytherin, right? Was that kind of energy. But to me, this like trauma is so romantic thing was part of that discussion at the time. Like, there was definitely an argument that art only came from trauma, right? And I think a lot of artists use their art to deal with their trauma, but I do have a little bit of an issue with making trauma so romantic. And I think something that this show did, it was kind of inconsistent in how it utilized its female characters, its women characters, right? And there were pieces where I felt like I'd be like, oh, I know what the show is trying to tell me here. I know what their moral statement is on A, B, or C. But there were also moments where, like in the first episode, where Daisy goes and we're basically assume that she's been kind of sexually coerced into this experience by this famous singer, and they just don't really say anything about it, right? We just like kind of, move on. So because of their inconsistency in making those moral statements, I was a little concerned with the way that they chose to make trauma appealing throughout the show.
And I think add that to your earlier point about the pothole triggers. And it's like they bring a lot in without discussing it. They discuss some specific things in this show. I wouldn't even say well, but they present discussion around the idea of emotional intimacy, the idea of like infidelity, like that conversation happens, right? And then there's so many things that could be bigger conversations or could have bigger moments or are very, very heavy and could be very, very triggering to people that just happen and then they don't. And it's not funny, but it is like food for thought. Like, and you're going to tackle exploitation in the music industry and either show worst case scenarios or examples that are all too common, but equally as traumatic, and just like present them on a platter for people to take and then like kind of move on from them. I also think like it was interesting. There were some points, like there's a point really early on where Karen makes a comment about what they wanted her to wear. Right. And like, that's very early on. It's kind of like meant to show like, oh, Karen's a powerhouse who makes her own decisions. Like she's not going to take any of this. And I'm like, could she have really had any kind of career if she hadn't said yes to certain decisions? Like how far can you go when you're pushing back in the 70s as a woman in rock music? So I also am like, time period accuracy for how women were treated in the industry. I don't really know if it was there for me. But in terms of the show, we had fun watching women succeed. And we saw their struggle. And to me, it was like a very limited way. And I don't think it did either really justice by the end of it. Like you can have stories of women overcoming so much in music over 70s, 80s, 90s. And like the actual feminist advocacy that was happening in like emo and punk music, specifically with these women bands rising and talking about it. And instead we get like kind of this like half and half, whatever. That's not as eloquently said as what you said, Alexis, but that just, yeah, that's my thought on it.
Yeah. No, that's a real point of genuinely how a lot of social uprising of the era was grown through music, and we don't touch that at all. It's really interesting what aspects of life, I guess, they chose to sanitize or gloss over, even in comparison to the book. Like I am under the impression that a lot of the tougher topics have been dumbed down quite a bit from the book. And having not read it, I don't know if that is a good choice or not, because, there's a difference between like the romanticization of trauma. Again, like it's like when is it for the story and when is it just to be like, look at these sad people? It's hard.
What a thought. Yep.
Tough.
Okay, we're reaching the top of our hour, so let's like bring it back. We have one more quick conversation point, which is like the marketing of this show. And how interesting it was. I could talk all day about this. I had some thoughts that I had been sharing on Instagram, like in the lead up to the show, which I never look at my story views and who's actually watching my stories. But that day I noticed there was like a spike And then I did go and look, and I had like people from the comms agency running the campaign for Daisy Jones and the Six watching my story in which I was criticizing them. And I was like, that's a great way to get blacklisted from ever working with these people ever again. But for me, the way that the show was marketed was like so safe. It was just like it was expected. They got a Rolling Stone cover. It was gorgeous. They had Suki and Riley and oh my God, who was the third person that they had? Anyway, they had.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
They had who went on the Kelly Clarkson show? Hold on, Kelly.
Oh,
Clarkson.
yeah.
I'm forgetting who. Oh, they had Camila and Riley and Suki do the Kelly Clarkson show together, and they had the three of them specifically did this whole day of press where they were wearing like 70s inspired outfits, and that was kind of cool.
But styling was doing a lot of heavy lifting.
To me, that was expected though. I'm like,
yeah,
at a show like that, you can't go in wearing like what you'd wear to like the beach. Like you gotta lean into it. And then they brought everyone onto TikTok, and they were doing a little bit of behind the scenes, but to me, they really underutilized that campaign the way other shows have done that so much better. So I felt like that was lackluster as well. So overall, I was like, I didn't really feel like the marketing for the show was as inventive as it could have been. And the pieces that were inventive were like the influencer marketing. They had these events like in cities around the world, and then at South by Southwest, where they had these Daisy Jones and the Six concerts that they invited people to. And they had these like women-led bands and acts play music, and they sent out PR boxes that were like trunks with the record players in them that were all Daisy Jones and the 670s branded, which were really cool. But it was like, that's not enough. Like it was beautifully done, but it felt, I don't know, like it just felt like there were things missing for me. I was like, this should feel so much more splashy and huge, but
yeah. But I think that sort of is the trend with Amazon Prime shows. It's like, it's never enough, and it's never shipped to the right people. Like, I don't know, the avenues that they choose to go down are strange to me most of the time. Like, I feel like this is a project that you would specifically want to push to TikTok and push to Gen Z. And like they were relying a lot on like, did you read this book? Now watch the show. Or like, you watch Amazon Prime already, so you're going to see a trailer for this before whatever else you're watching, rather than like trying to target a new audience and expand beyond anyone who already knew what it meant.
I did get some ads on TikTok specifically, like some promoted videos from fashion TikTokers who I did not know. I've seen these people, I click on their profile, they'd have like 1 million followers. I'd be like, I've never seen you before. And they were doing these like how to dress like Daisy Jones and the Six, or like I've received clothing, which is from the Daisy Jones and the Six collab with like, it was like PacSun or something, or
I think Free People.
With Free People. So people were like wearing those outfits and like showing them off and stuff. But I was like, is fashion TikTok really the audience for this? Like, I just don't know if Prime Video understood the audience that would go for a show like this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's the biggest part.
I don't know. And I feel like they almost had some pieces of the puzzle right. Like they put Sam Claflin on the cover of Rolling Stone because they knew there was an audience for him that would eat it up. And it did. They were like, oh, everyone's like, Sam's back. He's having a moment. And the Hunger Games stuff is also happening. And you saw, at least I saw, a rise in like Finnick Odair content and the Me Before You clips that were going around on TikTok. So it felt like that happened. Mm-hmm. And then you had the Suki Waterhouse piece, which was interesting because she's got a huge fan base that's like very like on the pulse of what she's doing. And they pushed her out to do press and put her in, like they had Sam and they had Riley and they had Suki as a trio that did some press together, which I thought was good because those are the three names that are going to draw people in. But I don't know, kind of fell apart for me a little bit. Alexis, I know you had thoughts on this too, and kind of how it impacted your viewing experience. So like walk us through that.
Well, I just felt like a lot of the advertising and a lot of kind of the promotion and the marketing that you just described was all based on vibes. And because this was a show that was like set in the 70s, that started 5 years ago, that was kind of about the music industry, but was being presented to me now, I wanted some clue as to what I was getting into, right? Like I wanted to know like how close to the book is this project going to be? Like, is it going to be open to me as someone who didn't read the book? It was, but I didn't really know that going in. And I wanted to know like what part of the story am I supposed to be attached to? Because I really felt like if I would have seen advertising that instead of just being like vibes had been like love story, or I would have been maybe a little less worried about some of these trigger potholes that were happening, right? Or if I would have been able, like if it would have been advertised to me as like, okay, real life look at music in the 70s, then I would have maybe been more concerned. Like I would have known some of that was coming because I have a vague understanding of what music in the 70s was like, right? But because all that I saw going into this show was like 70s is cool, I had nothing to hold on to kind of steer me or guide me through the show. And I think that was a missed opportunity for them advertising wise.
Yeah, they even thinking about like the images that they pushed, like the photos, the clips they used, they relied a lot on the performance aspect and like concert clips and look, your favorite book band now has music that you can listen to and like really push the songs. But that's a great point. There was not a lot of steamy chemistry clips used. Like I did not see there was not a lot of the juicier stuff teased even. It was very much, look, the fake band has real music.
So I just Googled this because I did see, and maybe because of my algorithm, like I did see commentary when the album came out about how interesting it was to put the album out to get music fans interested and then to watch the show. And it did go to number 1 on the soundtracks chart as soon as it was released. It was released immediately on vinyl, CD, and streaming. And then there's this comment from Kevin Weaver, who's Atlantic Records West Coast president. Part of how we went in and originally presented our vision for this was that we were going to treat Daisy Jones as a real band. So they put Daisy Jones on the record label. They tried to market the album as like that was the pitch to get people to watch the show. So it was number 1 on the soundtracks chart. It sold just a little over 21,000 units in the US. Like that's fine.
I feel like that worked for like 2 days.
I agree.
And they released it too far out before the show.
If they had, how do I say what I want to say? If they had done that, but then also given us like the teaser of the century, like if they had given us a piece of Daisy and Billy writing the album, right? That would have tied right into this idea of like, we're marketing them as a band. Like give us something that's more show specific to make us want to watch more of that process of how they made this album. Like they should have done like a behind the scenes mockumentary of like the making of Aurora and pushed that as like a main piece, but done it in character with these guys. Do you know what I mean? Like a short, like 2-minute cut, put it on all the platforms, make that a promo piece for the show. But like it felt disjointed.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, like the idea of starting the show with this in mind. Like Alexis, you have this note about like how it made it difficult to even start the show with like this kind of weird run up of promo.
Yeah, I just, it was going to be hard for me to start a new show anyway. And I blamed myself a lot for that in the beginning. Like I haven't been able to start the show because my brain is broken, right? But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, there was no advertising to draw me into this show. Like I am someone who really likes that like mid-century modern era. Showing me a bunch of 70s clothing, that's a day in the life for me. I look at that every day. So like that's not something that's going to necessarily draw me into following a narrative. Like the vibes alone were kind of didn't give me any narrative piece to hold on to going into the story. And I vaguely knew this was supposed to be a love story. I did kind of know that. But when it started, I was like, okay, this has to be the love story between you and Daisy, but like you're not connected in the story yet. So maybe I'm wrong about that. Like I have no clue what this is supposed to be anymore. And if there would have been more like traditional, like teaser trailer type commercials, I think that would have made it easier for me to start with and stay with the show.
Yeah, full send, full agree with you there. I also think that this is a moment where they were competing with like all of the heavy hitter shows dropping, right? Because you have the Emmys cutoff date around the corner. So Daisy Jones and the Six is dropping while The Last of Us is still airing. The Mandalorian's about to come out. Shrinking is airing. Ted Lasso's coming back. Like you have all Shadow and Bone dropped, which is like Book Talk specifically is all in on Shadow and Bone. So you have all of these projects that are coming out right now for all of these reasons with the added pressure of trying to air before the Emmys cutoff date. Like you can be inventive and lean on something different, but you still need like the pillars that Alexis you're referring to that make people buy in. Like you really need to speak to your periphery audiences when there's that much noise, because the people that are going to watch, like there are so many people that are probably going to watch this now that it's over. And also because there were other shows that demanded attention in those first 2 weeks that it was coming out. They're like, oh, I'm just going to park Daisy Jones. I'll come back to it this summer. I'll come back to it like whenever. I also just like disagree that Daisy Jones and the Six is a March show. Like to me, this should have come out in June. Like it should have capitalized on like, why didn't it come out the same weekend as Coachella?
Exactly. It's a Coachella, it's a Lala, it's a whatever that one in the South.
Yeah,
no.
That's fine. No, not the Canadian one.
No. I don't care about Montreal.
Yeah. No, that's so funny. Okay, so let's leave it there. I think that we're a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to some pieces of Daisy Jones on the Six. Why don't we end our Daisy Jones on the Six conversation on like what's going to stay with us now that the show is over? Like, is there a piece that is going to stay with us? Is there a piece that's going to like swiftly depart from our us? Like, you know, it's all in the rear view. I'm not revisiting it. For me, I would say this is a show that I would rewatch now that I know how it ends specifically. I'd love to revisit it, knowing what we're building towards at the end, because I feel like there's probably a lot that I missed just because I was blindsided. Like in the first 3 episodes, I was blindsided by how important that first act was because I was so fixated on Daisy and Billy. I did not understand the importance of Camila in the show, so I kind of missed her importance and like her introductions. I would love to revisit it, I think. And I think I will revisit it. And specifically, Marissa, while you were gone, Alexis and I really dug in on that songwriting episode and like Billy and Daisy and the songwriting. Like, I think that, and I hope that when people are considering their book to TV specific adaptations or book to movie adaptations, that they can look at Daisy Jones and the Six as an example of like bringing that tension to life in a really thoughtful way. Because I think that they nailed it in a way that some other shows really did not. So a lot to come back to for me. I loved this show. I will be streaming Aurora. I am in my Sam Claflin era. He deserves the world. That's where I end with it. Marissa, your final thought.
Yeah, I don't know that I will rewatch it soon. I think it maybe in summer, maybe around Coachella Lala era. I will be feeling my music festival moment. That's what I'll do, because that's also when I'm going to the Eras tour, which is at Soldier Field, which is where the final episode is. So that's when I'll rewatch it. And I'll get to go to Soldier Field and be like, this is where Daisy Jones and the Six broke up. But I think, yes, I will be streaming Aurora. Some of those songs are going to make it onto some playlists. And honestly, I would be really interested to read the book now. There was a moment where I was like, well, now I know what happens, and I don't need to read the book. But there are some things that I think could have been flushed out more and were sort of rushed over in the show. And so I would be interested to see Billy and Daisy's relationship in particular, sort of the inner workings of that and how that is developed in the book rather than on the show.
Absolutely. Alexis and Tommy?
Listen, I will be re-listening to the music from this show on loop. So like I may be annoyed with their marketing, but like they got me there. But the thing I think that it was really never going to leave me in terms of this show is Timothy Oliphant's hair. Like, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you. Like, I wish I could be like, oh, rewatch the songwriting episode. No, I think I'm just going to have nightmares about that man's
Jump scare.
It's so bad. He, especially in that like jump scare picture you keep throwing up, it feels like a pirate in jail in the B version of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Is that not the vibe? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, you're muted.
I think that he's earned a permanent place in the jump scare
Oh,
drive. I think that we're not letting go of this anytime soon.
I had
my
a teaching
God.
class this week, and we were talking about how, college students now, you've got 10 minutes before their attention span is right, and you have to do something to kind of change the vibe. And somebody was like, well, I had a professor that like every 10 minutes would put a jump scare on the PowerPoint so people had to pay attention. That may be my jump scare.
Wow.
I love that. That is so fun. Can you start doing that? Do you need help? We can help. Your little jump scare TAs. Let's start a community folder.
If I let you all help, it will just be like 1,000 Andrew Garfield memes.
Maybe
what's wrong with that?
The cake, but
Yeah,
like
what's
it's an
wrong
epic
with that?
start.
But I do have to say, going from Daisy Jones and the Six to The Mandalorian, Timothy Olyphant is in the first episode of season 2 with beautiful hair, like truly gorgeous, wonderfully styled. He wears a Mandalorian helmet for like half of it. Every time he takes it off, the hair is gorgeously coiffed. Like, it was day and night. It was really a lot.
We all know I listen to things. There's a podcast episode of Strong Female Characters from a couple years ago that I listened to like on repeat. But their main like WTF moment of that week is that a couple years ago during the pandemic, Timothy Olyphant got his ear pierced, and they're like, it's a midlife crisis earring. Like, this man is so gorgeous. He could never look flawed except for this earring. And I'm like, well, now Daisy Jones and the Six is here to prove you wrong. And it's not like,
Yeah.
You thought it couldn't get worse? May I present?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Let me get it. This.
Oh.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh.
My hard like context switch from watching Daisy Jones is going from Daisy Jones tension to Shadow and Bone tension. Like, that was really like tough for me because it's the same tropes, but one is dealing with it in the real world and one is dealing with it in like the mythical world of Shadow and Bone, which, like, with
every swords.
Well, no, yes, but there are swords in the show, sure, but there's just like different stakes when like you're in the world that we know and then the world that like you have to gain context on why the trope exists and matters in this way. So I'm kind of glad that Daisy Jones and the Six is done, and I can now enjoy the end of Shadow and Bone with like, I can just like fully immerse myself without being like, well, they did that differently in Daisy Jones. They're like, they approached it differently. Like, I was kind of doing it back and forth. So if you didn't know, if I haven't said it enough, I'm watching the finale tonight. I'm very excited about it. So send me all the fan cams and that'd be great. We are well over time, so let's do a quick plug. I'm producer Liz all over the internet, and you probably want to have notifications on for me this week, and that's all I'm going to say. Marissa?
You can find me everywhere at Missa Bobissa on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And Schmigadoon comes out April 5th.
And if you haven't seen the wig video Marissa did about Daisy Jones, you should catch up on it because it's there's more conversation in the comments of that video.
Yes, hashtag exposed.
Alexis.
I am at Just Alexis Blake on TikTok and Instagram. And honestly, who the hell knows what I'll be talking about this week, but I hope to see you there.
I love it. I love it. And follow Sly Clone MC. Sly's not here this week. They'll be back next week. And Marissa, would you like to plug our show? Because you do it much better than I do.
Oh, sure. You can follow our show on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at After Party Show, SHO. And be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe everywhere. YouTube, like, leave a comment. Replayers, we see you. We love you. Say hello. We'll reply.
And we have to give Marissa her flowers for doing the memes of the week every week, because I tweeted about this. I didn't not take any notes during Daisy Jones and the Six while I was watching. I was purely enjoying the show on vibes and had no notes written down for tonight. And Marissa did the memes of the week and perfectly nailed what Marissa thought my reaction was to the show without us having not discussed it. So a round of applause for the accurate memes from Marissa. Alexis, I think she was also accurate on your end. Yeah.
I'm muted, but she was, yes.
Alexis, I had read Alexis's notes. I knew what her feelings were. But Liz reliably is going to have something to say about the men. And I knew that. I knew there were going to be exceptions. Oh my God. I knew there were going to be exceptions because there are some good men, but.
And also reliably, Liz is going to have no notes.
No notes, and she has something to say about men. That's the whole brand. I love it. So more memes from the show account from Marissa next week. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you're following that after party show. And we will see you around this week. It's gonna be a fun one. And we'll see you next week. I don't remember what we're talking about next week. Wait, I think I do. Is next week the big week?
I think we're having a party.
Okay, let's talk. Wait. Okay, don't go.
Wait.
Sly's gonna kill us. Sly always knows exactly what's happening on the show.
I can see them right now being like, no, they're not, because they're not.
I had to switch accounts to get to the calendar.
They're busy, but
yeah. Oh my God.
Okay. It's not on the calendar.
I think that's. Oh wait, I know where it is.
We're so irresponsible.
Wait. Hold on. I'm in our planning doc. I think
you guys, next week is going to be really big if what we think it is what it is. Or it's also going to be big for a totally different reason.
No, it is. It is?
Okay.
Yes, April 1st. Oh. It is our anniversary show of We'll Throw the After Party, because we did our big funeral show and then we relaunched the show. This is 1 year of We'll Throw the After Party. So we're not throwing an after party. We're throwing a party. There's no pranks. There's no pranks.
No pranks.
I'm too autistic for that.
No pranks
happening on the show.
We are not April Fool's Days folks over here. So we're doing an anniversary party next week. We're going to be finally bringing some long-term arguments on this show to a head live. Shall we reveal the new segment that's being introduced next week?
Liz and Marissa may have another first marital spat on the show.
I don't think we need to give too much away, but it might have something to do with the pinned tweet on my Twitter.
Oh, beautiful. So you can go to @MissAbobissa on Twitter and see more on that. We're bringing back some of your favorite segments that we have not done in a long time. We're bringing up some stuff that's really been simmering and arguments that have never been resolved on this show. They probably won't be resolved next week either, but we're going to give them space to air out. We're going back to our MCU roots a little bit and talking more about the MCU. It's going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned to the show accounts, where I think over the course of the week, we might be revealing some of what's in store. Marissa does the reliable what's happening on the show this week. You'll want to see that. And if you're not caught up on after party show lore, it's a great week to go back and maybe rewatch some of the episodes from the past year since we rebranded. We've talked about a lot of different things over the past year, some MCU shows. We've done host takeover shows. We've thrown some really fun random shows and parties over the past year. So feel free to catch up if you're not already. And we're going to have fun next week. I'm so excited to look back on the past year and bring some shit back up to the front of the conversation. So we will see you next Saturday at 8 Eastern for that. And with that, that's long over our cutoff time for the show. So we'll say goodnight. Bye, everybody.
Bye.